Hello and welcome to another edition of 310 to Left, presented by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling truck for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox. Tom Caron along with Alex Speier as we continue to put the 2025 Red Sox season to bed. You did it last week, Alex. You got to go to the press conference. I was at the Jimmy Fund Golf Tournament. Always interesting to sort of watch the dynamic as Sam Kennedy sits there as president and CEO, Craig Breslow, the guy who puts the roster together, Alex Cora, the guy who's got to make it something on the field. What was your takeaway from Sam's part? Because Sam's going to be our guest here. What did you think of Sam at the press conference?
Yeah, like in that setting, which is a kind of strange one because you're triangulating between the different people you're asking the questions to, it's an opportunity to offer very rough sketch of broad-based outlines of where the franchise is, where the franchise hopes to go, reiterating the desire to play baseball in October. But it's tricky to get too far into specifics. So the opportunity to do so in this kind of a setting is nice because we get the opportunity to ask follow-ups and to give a little bit more dimension to how the team is thinking entering the offseason.
Yeah, and going into an offseason, which is a year away from a potential work stoppage at the end of the collective bargaining agreement, there's a lot to talk about on the industry side. So let's get to it. It's Sam Kennedy, president and CEO of the Red Sox on 310 to Left, presented by your New England Ford dealers. All right, Sam Kennedy joining us as we sort of look back on the season. Sam, it was incredible, another roller coaster of a season, but you just talk about the way it ends, like within a 6-day span, you're popping champagne at Fenway Park, and then you're packing up your bags at Yankee Stadium to go home for the season. Talk about, A, getting back to the playoffs and what that meant to you personally and to the organization, and B, when you're coming home from Yankee Stadium, what are you thinking? What's in your mind? What's that taste in your mouth?
Yeah, well, it was sort of a microcosm, I think, of the whole season, which was some high highs and low lows. But on balance, we felt like we took a significant step forward as an organization. No popping champagne on a year where you fall short of your ultimate goal. That said, it was well-deserved champagne for getting back into the postseason, and then a gutting, empty feeling leaving Yankee Stadium. So it just a reminder of a couple things. Number one, where this organization needs to be, which is playing baseball in October, is the goal. And now I think we took a good step, but we've got a long way to go as we head into the off season here. But something to really build on, I think.
That's interesting to hear about the long step to go. And it is, so last year you outlined the goal being the American League East, rather than like, let's not back in. Set your sights on winning the American League East. You were 5 games behind the Blue Jays and the Yankees this year in the regular season. How do you view where you guys are situated, kind of on paper as we begin the offseason?
Yes, I think we have a great core. We have a great group of homegrown guys who are starting to emerge. We've prioritized long-term extensions with some key players. There's a great culture and a great vibe in that clubhouse that starts with our manager and the coaching staff. And Brez did a great job last offseason. So I think we're really well positioned. Our fans have responded to this team, but now we need to build on what we saw this year to try and take that next step forward. And yes, the American League East needs to be the goal. Winning the American League East. It's really, really hard to play 162 and then being subject to the randomness of a very short season. The postseason is random enough. Those short series are very random, and we really want to try and get to that next level and try and win the American League East. That said, we have won the World Series through a wild card entrant in the past, so it's possible. But we really think that should be the goal, to try and do what we can to be in the hunt for the division all year long.
It was the first time the Sox have been in the playoff under this format, right? The best of three wild card team. And it's amazing. Even as the playoffs were beginning, I was still getting notes on social media from fans who didn't understand you weren't going to get a home game in that first round, right? Because it was all new to a lot of your fans. So I'll ask you, I mean, you get a seat at the table. You have the ear of Rob Manfred from time to time. Do you like this format? Would you like to see any tweaks to this playoff format?
Yeah, first of all, I love the number of teams that get into the postseason. I think and again, this is just a personal opinion, I guess a Red Sox opinion from various people that I've talked to in our organization and ownership. It feels like we have the right number of teams in the postseason in terms of 6 teams coming in from each side. That said, I think if it were possible to get to a place where you had more playoff baseball, that would be even better to have longer series. Obviously, some adjustments would need to be made to the regular season. But I really commend baseball for change and innovation, rules changes, format changes, experimenting with different things. Baseball needs to honor its tradition, but not be completely and totally bound by them. So I've really liked the number of teams that get in. The playoffs have been extraordinary. The interest level in these games have been off the charts. I said it the other day, baseball is definitely having a moment. I think the country is falling back in love with baseball. And that has been an affirmative effort by Major League Baseball's owners and players with this joint competition committee coming together to make the product and the sport and the game more interesting, more appealing to all fans and all generations. So to the extent that we can keep tinkering with postseason format, understand what our fans want, what our broadcast partners want, what our sponsors want, I think we should explore that. And postseason play is exciting. And so if we could expand the first series and have games in both ballparks, that would be great. Now, I'm sure I'd feel a little bit different if we had hosted the games at Fenway Park and we were still playing. So you'll have to forgive the recency bias and sort of fresh thoughts that are in my head right now if we look at this differently down the road. But I really think that baseball's done a great job with the changes to the postseason format.
Yeah, so Sam, you mentioned the possibility of, you mentioned the enthusiasm for postseason baseball. Do you think that it might be on the table to shorten the regular season and think about a longer postseason format? Go to the best of 5 right out of the chute for the wild card, or there is something to be said for this incredibly compressed shorter series. I loved the best of 1 format, right? There was a thrill to that. Where do you think this goes?
Yeah, ironically, sort of my comments notwithstanding, I do also miss the 1 game dramatic play-in game, as long as we're not playing in game 163 or we have a 2021 version of it. So, perhaps if baseball considered shortening the season, that's something that we could all get behind. Perhaps tiebreakers are determined by a 1-game playoff. I think all ideas should be considered and discussed. And right now, you have a great format for these discussions with the joint competition committee, with owners and players working together on it. It's in my opinion, it's the most important committee at Major League Baseball because you're really focusing on the game and the product, and it's been a priority of Rob Manfred and Noah Garden and Dan Halem and Morgan Sword and the group, and we from the Red Sox small corner of the world, we've really appreciated all those efforts. Tom Werner serves on that committee, so more examination of new and creative ideas, the better, and we'll see what we can come up with as we go into the future.
So, all right, I didn't mean to plan on going here, but we're talking about sitting at the table and negotiating, and we know the CBA is up after next season. Even in conversations like that with the competition committee and things that you're having input in, what's the tenor right now? What's the mood? Is there a mood of cooperation right now between the industry and the players who play in the game?
Well, I'm definitely not at the table in those negotiations, and certainly not authorized to speak about discussions or negotiations. That said, we have an incredibly experienced Major League Baseball Players Association. We have an incredibly experienced commissioner and his team. And the hope, from my perspective, is that the two sides get together and talk and work things out, as opposed to not talking. Collective bargaining is all about getting ideas that can sort of create a win-win. And obviously that's what both sides are committed to. Baseball is in such a good place, with the format changes, with the rule changes, the interest in the sport. Television ratings locally, nationally, globally are up. Attendance is up. The quality of play is so high. So I'm hopeful that both sides will engage meaningfully as the calendar turns to 2026, and let the discussions begin and get to a good conclusion for everybody. And that's difficult to do, but it's really important as we go forward.
And the one thing history shows, Sam, right, is that until there's a deal, there'll be uncertainty. So I guess the question is, as you go into this offseason trying to do what you need to do to take this team to the next level, how much does that uncertainty play into your plans, into 29 other teams? Like, is that hovering over decisions right now? The fact that you don't know what, if there isn't a stoppage, right? Even if there isn't a work stoppage, there could be a very different sort of economic framework in which you build teams in 2027. So how much does that factor into what you plan on doing and what you can do this offseason?
It's certainly a factor that you consider, but by no means can you let that halt or stop your desire to improve the club, improve in every area: pitching, defense, offense. Craig Breslow talked yesterday in detail about where we're looking to improve and how we're looking to improve. And the macro Major League Baseball issues are certainly out there and a factor that everyone has to consider. But I don't think it will be sort of a cloud hanging over us as we go into the postseason. And I'll remain optimistic about a good outcome with those discussions at the appropriate time.
I'll remain optimistic is kind of like a tagline that you can just attach. I think that's a guarantee that Sam will say that once per conversation, which good on you. But
better than the alternative, right?
that bottle. Well, that was that wine you had at the winter meetings a few years ago when the pessimist was sitting there waiting for us at the table when we walked into your room.
That's right. I mean, let's zoom out for a second and look at what the three guys on this Zoom or whatever platform we're using here get to do for a living. Why would we ever wake up one day of our lives being pessimistic? It doesn't make any sense to me.
There you go.
Luckiest people in the world.
310 to Left is presented by your New England Ford dealers who've been taking everyone out to the ball game at Fenway Park for decades. Catch Ford next time you're at Fenway, including in the Ford Clubhouse, a full-service bar perfect for bringing your lineup together and for recording our live edition of 310 to Left. It's all brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling trucks for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox.
So getting back to the question of I suppose the Sam Kennedy optimism, so as you think about building towards 2026, last year you guys talked about explicitly and affirmatively turning, quote unquote, turning the dial towards the season at hand rather than like kind of shifting the focus from the future to 2026. Is the paradigm the same entering this offseason as it was? Does the fact that you guys reach the playoffs change, either scale back the kind of aggressiveness of moves that you might see this offseason, or does it amplify it, thinking that the gap between where you are and where you ultimately want to be of championships is narrowing to the point where you continue to to take big swings in a way that you did last offseason with Crochet and Bregman?
Well, look, one of the things that I've learned in a couple of decades of doing this is that it makes absolutely no sense to comment or make a commitment on what may or may not happen in an off season. The markets are so unpredictable. If you had told us last year that we were going to emerge from Dallas with a trade for Garrett Crochet, I would have believed you, but until we had that all-nighter and it came together in ways that were very, very unpredictable, especially given some conversations that had gone on earlier in the day and the day before that. So I don't want to commit to anything. I want to just reiterate for our fans and all of Red Sox Nation that the goal is to take yet another step forward with this franchise. We took a great step this year, and we need to take that next step. But how we're going to get there, I don't want to commit to.
The Crochet trade history is such a fascinating one. As you referenced that day, like Chris Getz, the White Sox GM, erased you guys from his dry erase board in terms of a candidate to deal for Crochet, and then of course like there's the Breslow all-nighter that ends up being kind of creating re-engagement. But kind of tangential to that, it is interesting to think about how that pivot point happened. Right, you guys were heavily pursuing Max Fried. You end up having the Yankees push the bidding to kind of a different stratosphere than we had seen with a lot of free agent bidding in recent years. You end up making the move via trade. It does strike me, Sam, that a number of your best acquisitions for starting pitchers have been via trade, right? Like you think back to, before your time, Pedro, you guys got Beckett, you guys got, Schilling via trade. Chris Sale was a trade that had great return on investment. The extension, different thing, but, that's okay. We'll leave that alone for now. Do you have, there's this question of whether or not you guys are going to continue adding towards the front of the rotation. Do you have a preference when it comes to trading for that guy as opposed to trying to push at the top of the market via free agency?
Well, I would say that one thing that's been missing in baseball the last 6-7 years, maybe longer, maybe a decade, are sort of good old-fashioned baseball trades, and there's a reason for it. Front offices are so smart, so advanced. The market is so efficient that it is incredibly hard to match up, as we say, on a trade. And one of the things that has been so impressive about Craig Breslow and his leadership is pursuing all of those avenues. Without going into detail, you did point out a scenario and a situation where at one moment we were engaged in a free agent discussion, and the next moment, literally within 24 hours, we were engaged in a very aggressive trade conversation. So I think the message there is we're open to both, and we have had good results, and perhaps considering more trades, given our history, is something that we would be wise to consider. Now, they also hurt, right? You don't know the outcome of them until much later after the trade is made, particularly when you're giving up future value. But anyway, I think you raise a good point that we have had success at times on the trade front. So something that we should always keep as an available option to us as we go into this off season. And it's just stresses the importance of having a great farm system to have that available as a weapon.
You pulled off a major trade during the season, right? And I'm not going to revisit the Rafael Devers deal now because it worked. Whatever the reasons that went into that, ultimately you made the playoffs, and as Craig Breslow predicted, won more games after the trade than you would have maybe. But I guess the question is the resources that became available. You talked about them at the time. Right, someone somewhere probably has a graphic going this whole offseason, right? Here's what they traded away. Here's how much they've spent this offseason. That's going to be there. That's going to be a narrative this winter. Do those resources allow you to do some things that maybe over the last couple of winters would have been a little tougher?
Well, look, resources have been there in over the 24 years that we've been here. They'll continue to be there. They just have to be deployed properly. I mean, that's the name of the game: dollar resources, player resources, recruitment of other things. One of the best resources we have is the best fan base in all of baseball. I mean, I cannot get through this podcast without thanking our fans for being there. I mean, Fenway was back. It was electric. It was packed. This fan base responded to an exciting team, a young team, and we hope that will continue. We're confident it will. That's probably the best resource that we have, best selling point for free agent players wanting to be in Fenway. God, I mean, you heard Roman Anthony talk about why he wanted to sign the extension he signed. He wanted to be in Boston at Fenway Park. So probably the best resource we have right there.
On top of that, though, the Devers trade, again, setting aside what happened this year, it did take away that guy who you would just pencil in for 30 plus homers, in the middle of the season, right? The true established power threat in the middle of the order. Do you feel like that's something that was missing for the Red Sox down the stretch? Do you feel like that is an area where you guys are likely to push this coming off season to try to get, the true masher, to solidify the middle of the order?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we did struggle offensively in the postseason. We saw it just the other night, and that's an area that definitely needs focus, and will have our focus this offseason. But again, hard to know where all the conversations will lead.
3:10 to left is presented by your New England Ford dealers, who've been taking everyone out to the ball game at Fenway Park for decades. Catch Ford next time you're at Fenway, including in the Ford Clubhouse, a full-service bar perfect for bringing your lineup together and for recording our live edition of 3:10 to left. It's all brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling trucks for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox. Sam, you talked about Fenway coming to life, and we used to joke a little bit. The last couple of years, there was a lot of talk on the marketing side about the Fenway experience, right? When the team was down, you had a lot of other things, come out to the ballpark. Last year, and Alex talked about this, Alex Cora, the Fenway experience became much more of a baseball experience again. Did you feel that shift? Felt like midway through the season, your crowds were always there. But suddenly it was every pitch. It was groaning if they walked a batter. It was unease when the other team had something going. Like that was the environment I felt we had and was there every night. And it felt like it was back every night over the second half of the season. How much did that mean to you, and how much of a difference was there?
It was huge. And we have the smartest fans in all of baseball. They're locked in on everything that's happening, who's performing at what level, what's going on around us in the American League East. I spent a lot of time in Toronto, who, by the way, did an incredible job with their ballpark renovations up there. A lot of time at Yankee Stadium. The intensity was there, and being on the road, you learn a lot. You see the way fan bases behave. There's just nothing like Fenway. It is a competitive advantage, and it's something we really need to lean into in terms of roster building and in terms of the environment and the energy at Fenway. We can do an even better job of that, really leaning into the Fenway factor. I think Brez has our baseball operation going in that direction. But I know, going back to our early days here in Boston, that was something that we exploited better than it had ever been exploited before, and something we really need to be mindful of. Players fit for Fenway, and then also players that fit from a cultural perspective. That I've talked a lot about this. Players that want to be here. I mean, it seems so simple and so obvious, but until you're playing in Fenway Park, there's just nothing like it. And you have to want to be in this atmosphere and all that goes along with it. So that has to be a priority for us as well.
One of those players you mentioned, Roman Anthony, you've locked him up. He wants to be here. And he was injured at the end. We know what that meant. But I thought, there was that shot of Roman and Marcelo and Jason Tatum on the sideline at a Patriot game. And later they were talking about how they were texting Drake May. Like, all of a sudden, there's this pretty exciting time in Boston where a young generation of superstars are coming. We know what Jim Rice and Fred Lynn did for this franchise when they came in. We know what Mookie and Xander and the young guys did when they came together, right? How excited is the franchise that it's not just really good baseball players, but these are guys who have the potential to be superstars in Boston, to be an important part of this city. What does that mean to you personally?
Well, there's no environment like Boston. I don't think there's ever been an era in professional sports in Boston like we've had the last couple of decades. I always like to tip my cap to the Kraft family. Growing up, following the Patriots, it's quite different what happened here when they took over. And when we first got here, we had the opportunity to celebrate Super Bowl champions at Fenway Park on our first opening day. We all have our different perspectives, but in my mind, that was sort of this like ushering in of this new era where expectations in Boston at the Garden, at Fenway, at Gillette Stadium were championship expectations. And that continues. It's unbelievable that we have a generation of fans now. The diaspora of Boston sports fans around the world grew up with a mindset of winning, not, how are we going to blow this? Back, Alex, to your point about my optimism, I do think if you have the attitude that we are going to be successful, we are going to win, we are supposed to win, that really matters. And that message needs to come from leadership, from ownership, from senior management, all the way throughout the whole organization, that in Boston, you come here to win championships. And that's a mindset and a mentality that exists. And it's really exciting to be a part of. I know that everyone in our organization that works off the field night in and night out to create special experiences at Fenway Park, to put a great team on the field, to ushers, ticket takers, we all feel a massive sense of gratitude, and we're really fortunate not just to be a part of the Red Sox, but to be part of this era in Boston sports, which has been so special thanks to the Celtics and the Bruins and the Patriots and the Red Sox.
One person who did come to Boston this year with the idea of coming to win a championship was that Bregman fellow, right? Like who seems like he sets his bar pretty high. It's a strange thing to have for a player to have an opt out. He's under contract to you, right? Like you signed him, you showed that you have great interest. What's the dance like for figuring out whether or not he's going to want to stick around, and whether or not you guys need to reconsider the terms of the arrangement, or whether or not everyone's like, we're all good, let's keep moving forward? Do you enter the offseason under the assumption that you have Alex Bregman as a member of your 2026 and 2027 clubs?
Well, the best way to handle it is just direct sort of candor and honesty with each other, and we'll keep that private. We don't like to talk about contract discussions or issues like this in the public domain, other than to say, I mean, this is a very, very, very special player and a special human, great family. And I think the mutual admiration is there. And so we'll see what happens. But this is a guy that's been fit for Boston, and we really appreciate him and his family for what they've done so far. And we'll leave it at that for now.
All right, Sam, I'll wrap it up with this. I think twice a year I ask you this question. Once is at the home opener at the Fenway studio, and once is as we go into the offseason. What's your message to Red Sox fans? What do you say to fans going into this offseason? What should the expectations be? What should they be looking for from this franchise?
Well, the first message is one of thank you. We never, ever take the support and the loyalty and the interest and the feedback and the passion for granted. So thank you for that as always, but it's important to stress that. And then in terms of expectations, look, we know what the expectations are. It's why we're in Boston. It's why we work here. It's why we live here. It's personal, and our organization wants to take that next step forward. That's the goal as we go into 2026, and we look forward to an exciting offseason and then a great 2026 season.
All right, good stuff. One step forward this year and back to the playoffs. Now the work begins to take it to the next step. Sam, we always appreciate the visit. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Great to be with you.
A very optimistic few minutes with Sam Kennedy. Alex, I do want to go back to what I said at the beginning and what we talked about in the middle. The looming CBA. Next year is going to be a lot of talk about where that all goes. How much of an impact do you think that will have on what teams do this winter?
I think it's going to be pretty significant for at least some teams, and they're thinking about how they would approach long-term contracts, whether they would approach long-term contracts, or if they're going to be more short-term focused on just a couple of years. Because if all of a sudden there's a salary cap in baseball, which that would first of all mean doom for the 2027 season. But if the conditions, the financial conditions change drastically, then you could end up being kind of holding a bag. And that's not a position that most organizations want to be in when it comes to long-term contracts.
Unfortunately, we'll be talking a lot about that in the weeks and months to come. But good catch up today with Sam Kennedy. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll do it again soon. For Alex Speier, I'm Tom Caron. Thanks for checking out 310 to Left, presented by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling truck for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox. We'll see you next time.